if you want to build pipelines that go from, let's say, a raw volume into a bronze and then into silver and to gold, and you want to use declarative pipelines, and also you want to use change data capture, then there's a way you can do that. Now I've got some files here, and they look a little bit like this. So we've got I mean, these things are massive, but you've got all these columns here, and at the end it's got a delete column, and it'll say either yes or no to whether it wants to be deleted or not. And so these are the subsequent days files. So every day you get a new file, and then every day it'll either be an update to a person's information, or it'll be delete that person. So this is all just fake data, made up names that I've done, and I've got like maybe 8-9 days of data coming in, and this can be seen as change data capture, because we're not supplying the full load every time, but we're just supplying the people's information that has changed. So we're going to go into our bronze first from those raw files, CSV. Then we're going to clean up a date. As you can see, the date columns, some of them are formatted like this, so year, month, day with a timestamp, and then originally they were sort of day, month, /day, /month, /year, and then like that. So there's a different date formats coming in. So what we want to do is first create a streaming table from stream read files. That's from your volume in your catalog, which I'll just show you what that looks like. So I've just created this volume here, and we'll be putting our CSVs into this volume here, and we can put a trigger on that says whenever a file lands in here, then trigger off the pipeline. But we won't worry about that just yet, because I've built two different ways of doing ETL. One is procedural, and the other is declarative. So what we'll look at first is declarative, and we'll have a look at how that works. So going on to the raw to bronze, I think I need to refresh this page. 1 second. There, so you've got all your data coming in. It's very basic. Obviously, just select star. This is for demonstration purposes. And when it gets there, we'll have a cleaned up date. So just to show you what it might look like, let's go on to our queries. And then we'll look at some ad hoc query here. I'll have a look at that bronze table with the clean date. So if I just run this, let's have a look. So there's all the information, all your contacts, and you've got a clean date over here based on your date change there. So every time a file comes in, it'll have the date that that information is changed on. So every new file that comes in, this date will have the current date on it. Obviously, you're going to have, for your customers and your situation, you're going to have different things. So you just got to work around it and try and find out ways to fix it. So let's get onto our pipeline. We're going to run this because at the moment the silver tables are clean. There's nothing in them right now, just to show you how this is all going to work. So let's go on to our. In fact, we could clean our bronze tables as well. So let's do that. So let's delete from these tables. So if I run that, and then we run another one like this, delete from, and then we just start from scratch, and I'll run this pipeline, and I'll show you what it does. So if we just select those, run it, we should be able to delete all that data. So now in our clean data, we've got nothing. So go back to our pipeline here, and we're going to run a full table refresh because we're starting from scratch again. So we'll click on that, and it shouldn't take too long, maybe about a minute. And there it's complete. So we've gone all the way from, let's just maximize this, our bronze declarative into our clean date into our silver. Let's have a quick look at what that looks like now. So in here we should have about 101 or 102 rows of data, 102 rows, and then as you can see, that's all there. And the really cool thing now is if you look at your, let's have a look at our silver, not that one. We're going to look at the one that's called Declarative. We're going to just go like that and run this table. We are using slowly changing dimensions 1, so it's going to only have the latest ever data, and you always have this rescue data column here in a declarative pipeline, just in case anything is broken and you can go and fix it. And then we go back to our declarative pipeline here. I want to show you the code that goes into Silver. So this is very cool. Very cool little feature. Makes life so much easier. Create or refresh streaming table. Go and create that table. Create a flow using AUTO CDC, and it goes into that same table. And then from the stream of the bronze table, clean date. And the key you'll use is the constituent ID, which is like the identification row for that on that table, which is the ID for the person. And every time they find the delete column with a yes, you delete that row. And we can sequence it by the date that we cleaned up, which would then indicate when that, what's the latest for that constituent. And then we won't include the delete column in the output, and we'll store it as a type 1 slowly changing dimension, which is pretty cool. And I'll show you what type 2 looks like. So if we run with type 2, I'm going to just, first, before we do that, I want to show you that the next day's data it looks like this. And this person, Eliza Hilton, is going to be deleted, as you can see over there. So if we run that, again, I'm going to drop that into this volume. And so we'll go, that's the 21st, and then upload. Now we run this again, and we run the pipeline. And then we should see that if we look at this query, where name is Eliza, if we can catch it in time, you'll see that it's there. It might be done by the time we go. Oh, there it is. Okay, so that's there still. And then we're going to run this table, and then by the time it's finished, which is now, we're going to run this again, and that row should be gone. And there it is, it's gone. And that's how it works. So let's add in the next day, which would then be this person, Bo, has updated his email address. So if you look at Bo quickly, you'll see that his email address is currently blank. So if we drop that new file into the volume, that'll run. We can run that, and then you should see. So what date was it? The 22nd. Let's put that in and run our pipeline again. And then we'll see that when we run this, Bo will have his email address updated, and he'll only ever have one row of data in there because it's a slowly changing dimension type 1. If we have it as type 2, we'd have 2 rows in, and you'd have a start and end date column, which I think is very cool. It just does it all for you. And I can show you how that works in a second if we've got time. And that's done. So let's go back to our query. You can see how quick that is. And let's run this now. And we should see an email come up. There it is. So you can see how awesome that is, how it works. And it's all based on the constituent ID. So as that data is coming in, it's recognizing this constituent ID already exists. And if it does exist, then it doesn't update. And if it finds a delete column in this data over here, then obviously it'll delete it. But that's all you need. It's really a very little bit of code to get a CDC running, which I think is pretty awesome. So if we just change it to type 2 quickly, and then we'll just go and clean up our. Let's just clean up this table here, and then we'll clean up these tables again, and then we'll start again, just to show you how this works. So if we go back into our, let's delete this, and then we'll add those back in again in a second. So we're going to do a run again for the table full refresh. And now we've got slowly changing type 2, remember that. So start with a full refresh, and that should take about a minute or so, and we'll be back. And we're back, and if we go and look at our data now, let's just make sure we don't delete that again. That would be a waste of time. And let's just comment that back out. So now if we look at, let's get rid of this where clause, run that. So we're starting afresh now. You'll see that we're going to have some extra columns at the end, start at, end at. So let's run this again, and you'll start to see, for example, for Bo, that I'll show you what it's going to look like. So let's just add upload to this volume. I'm going to run both 1 and 2 in the 21st and the 22nd, upload that. And then we're going to run this pipeline again. And then we'll see for Bo, here's Bo White, you're going to now have 2 rows of data, one without an email, one with an email. And this is the idea of slowly changing dimensions too, where you have a full history of whatever's happened to every person in every row that's come in, right? So you'll have more rows, but your query can, you can put like a where clause on the end, what they call the end date, at underscore end, for example. I'll show you that in a second. So if we run this quickly and just see what we've got for Bo. There you go, I've got two rows of data. And the first is with an email, and if we just scroll all the way to the end, you can see that this is the current one. So you can see that you've got whatever the current row is, it's always got a null on the underscore end at. So if we run this quickly and run everything without a where clause, we're going to have 106 rows, but really where underscore end at is null, then we should have 103 or something, 102, 101. Okay, so that means that these are all the latest rows of data, and we shouldn't find Eliza in there because she was deleted. Remember, where, let's just go first name, like Eliza, because as you remember, on the 21st she was deleted. There you go, so she's not there, which is good. But if I took out this end at, then you'll see that she's probably there. Okay, so let's just go with that. There she is, and she was taken out at that time. Okay, end at. It's based on your change date, basically. Right, so that's how it works. That's how your slowly changing dimension works. I think it's really cool because you don't need a lot of code to do that. And you can go back into your jobs and pipelines here, and you can see that this pipeline that I was running was this one here. So we just ran that now, this one here, and it's great. It just saves you a lot of time, a lot of hassle, and do that. Now, the one last thing I want to show you, if you still want to listen, is one of them called, which is more procedural. Okay, procedural, you wouldn't use one of these pipelines, but you would use jobs to call notebooks, and these notebooks would then do a very similar thing, but it's much more code intensive and more systematic, should we say. So over here I've got a notebook which I'm running, and this notebook is creating a streaming table. But normally, if you're going to do procedural, you're probably just going to create normal Delta Lake tables without, not really necessarily streaming. So you might truncate and load into bronze and then go into silver. But what I've done over here is, you'll see that I've created the idea here, and I was just trying to mix things up just to make it a bit more challenging. So I was mixing it up with, over here I've got I created a streaming table using Python. So this is some Python code, read stream from, where was it? My path is the source directory there. So that's from the same place. So everything in the context folder, whatever's in there, it'll read from there, and we'll give it a schema location and a checkpoint and such. And then we say, okay, where do we want that to go into bronze context? So let's go into our bronze quickly. So obviously it's not the same as those declarative ones. I call it just bronze context like that. Let's see if there's anything in there. All right, so let's just delete from this table as well. And we'll start from the beginning. And so we can see how this works. All right, so delete that. Same data, but yeah. So let's go. So that's the bronze stuff. So it creates a streaming table with a checkpoint and all that. Then you can keep running data into then, no problem. And then your silver, I decided, well, I'm not going to use a notebook. I'm just going to use a Python file just to mix it up, like I say, because you're going to work with so many different types of things in your career, and every project's different. So this one, yeah, we've got some Delta table imports, Spark SQL functions, and we're going to take that bronze table here that we just created from our previous notebook, and then we're going to fix up those dates using an expression, and then cast that as a timestamp, or at least try. And then once we've got that, we're going to get the latest date. So we clean this date up. We're going to get the latest date based on that person. So whatever that constituent is, that person, get the latest change date for them. So this is almost like watermarking type thing. So give us a last updated value for that constituent, and that will be the information we use to put into our silver table, and we'll do a merge into our silvers table, so that we'll merge when there's a delete equal yes in the delete column, we'll delete that row. When there's an update, we'll just set title to that, and you're setting our columns here basically. That's your set command. And then over here we're inserting, but I had to sort of work around here to say don't insert anything if it's not a yes. Sorry, when not matched and it's not a yes to delete, then you can insert it. But if it is a yes, obviously don't insert it, because this is going to take the entirety of the bronze table every time and do a merge into silver. So it's a bit more work to do, and there's probably better ways to do it, but I just thought, for the sake of showing you how procedural works, we've built this quickly. So going back onto our jobs and pipelines here. So let's run this job, and we should see, before we run the job, let's make sure that our silver table has nothing in it either. So let's just get rid of that, and here we go, delete from, I think I've already deleted this, but let's do that, and then we will uncomment this and run that. Let's just see, you've got nothing in here, and we have no data. So let's run this pipeline now, and then we'll come back when it's done. And there we have our bronze table now after running that for the first time. And now it's running this code here. So it's just writing to that stream with a checkpoint and a checkpoint location, and it's putting the schema there as well, and making sure that it's casting the right stuff. And then the silver is going to be doing a merge statement, and let's run that now again. I just want to run this file, and then we'll just have a look at, obviously we'd run this in the job, so it will run this notebook first, and it'll run this file. I'm just going to run that manually for now. I'll just show you what that looks like when the silver's finished. So it's still running in the background. But there it is already. So it's done now, and we can see that we've got 102 rows. Now let's put some more data in here. So we're going to upload to this volume. It's got a trigger on here, I believe. So let's browse for the 21st. So remember, this is more procedural. So you making your notebooks or your Python files, and you're calling them in a job. So if we go back to our jobs here, and this is the one here, I've got a trigger on this, which is a trigger on file arrival. So you'll see that in a second or so, if I refresh, it should start running in the background. So once that fires off, you'll see a run happening. We'll just wait for that. There, that just fired off, file arrival. So that should finish in any second now. And if we go and look at our silver table, I think we are, yes, we are expecting that Eliza would be deleted. Let's just get rid of that, Eliza. Come on, can't get the runner. Okay, run it again. So that's not there. And that's because we know that on the 21st she was deleted. So sticking with our normal logic here and what we're trying to find, when we're looking for Bo, we should see that he's got no email address right now. There, and now if we do the same thing and we do add, go back to our volume, so go back to our catalog, go back to our volume, which is in here, and then we'll upload the 22nd. We should see then, actually this one, and we upload that. So back in a second, when we look at that file arrival, should trigger off that job, and I'll show you what the job looks like in a second. So that's running. Let's have a look at this run. You can see it's running in the bronze first, and then it's going to run into the silver. There it goes, and you can see those lines going across like that. That means it's still processing. And that shouldn't take too long. It's doing a merge statement at the moment. If I click on that, you'll see I open up the notebook. Normally has an output, so it's stopping. I don't know why it's not showing the detail. Let's go into our queries and let's have a look. So we expect that Bo White will have a primary email address now, or at least very soon. And there it is. So it's done. At this point, obviously, you don't have slowly changing dimension 2. You'd have to configure that in your code. You'd have to put that over here in your columns and such. But we haven't done that. But that's the beauty of using AUTO CDC. So now you know that you'd have to code that in yourself to get that extra row and that start and end at column in there. So thanks for watching. Thank you.